What's up, everybody? Welcome to You Rankin with me. Today we are doing Indiana Jones, but first, I am your host, Chad Webb. Down there, I usually have, how do you point? I usually have him up, but I have him down here. Diagonal's my big co-host, James Tancock. We also have Dylan Randazzo, Mr. Dan Skip Allen, and Kerri Webb, my wife, as usual. Ranking Indiana Jones today. It is one of the most iconic characters of all time, some of the best movies of all time, by in majority one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. So we're ranking, I think, mostly good movies here, but we're about to see. There's a lot of hot takes potentially coming. I don't know how we all are going to be with that, but I know a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about this franchise. So we're going to have 5 opinions here. So let's see how that goes. And we'll have a final ranking at the end. But how it generally works is we will just go around. We've all done our rankings prior to the recording. So we have 5 movies here. And so we're going to start with our 5s. We're going to go around till we get a pretty good consensus. I don't know. I don't really think with 5, there's really not going to be much of a weight for it here. I think we could just generally talk about them because there's only 5 movies. So, it's our top 5 of Indiana Jones, right? So we'll just basically go around starting with our 5, going all the way to our 1 until we've talked about every film. And then we'll do our final ranking. That's essentially how it works. Pretty simple this time. So, but also welcome to Dan Skip Allen for his first, appearance on the ranking with me. Very, very fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All these people here. What's up, Dan?
I said thank you. Appreciate having me on. I'm a movie guy and I'm a ranker. I go on Malcolm's show. Sometimes I want to be on there when they're ranking things that are I'm not happy with what they're doing. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit more subdued over here, and I don't want to strangle somebody. No,
we try to keep it a little chill over here, but your opinion's your opinion. You can voice whatever you want. Go hard. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Everybody's got their view, and we'll see how it goes. I think it's gotten a little heated, but not that heated. And Rankum is kind of similar there too. But yeah, check out Rankum over at what's the channel? The
Take 3 Productions.
3 Productions. Yes, thank you. Great show. I love being on there as well. It kind of inspired me to start ranking here. So there you go. All right. So without further ado, let's start with our number 5, and we'll just keep going. We'll chat about some Indiana Jones. Kerri, do you want to start with your 5?
Yeah, I can start with my 5. And my 5 is Temple of Doom.
All right. Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. Dan, 5. What is your 5?
And we don't discuss anything. We just say.
We're just going to go around and we're going to give our 5s. And if we get a consensus of what is a majority kind of deal at the 5, then we'll go ahead and talk about it. But if it's one person has Temple of Doom or something at 5, everyone else has it at 1 or 2, then we might just wait to talk about it.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah, I got you. Mine is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
All right. James, what is your 5?
I had Kingdom of the Crystal Skull too.
Dylan, what is your 5?
Dial of Destiny, which sounds counterintuitive to my name that I have right here, but yeah, it's Dial of Destiny.
Totally fair. Totally fair. Very new one. Yeah, mine is also Temple of Doom, actually. So we're tied here on our 2 5s.
Mm-hmm.
We have Temple of Doom between us, and then we have some Crystal Skull and 1 Dial of Destiny at 5. So let's just go through our 4s, and then we'll see what else naturally comes. So Dan, what is your number 4?
The Dial of Destiny.
All right, James, what is your number 4?
I had Doom.
Okay, Dylan, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Temple of Doom.
And my number 4 is the Dial of Destiny. Kerri, what is your 4?
My number 4 is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Okay, so what does the math look like here, Kerri? What should we talk about first?
I would say we should talk about Temple first because 4 of us have said that now, and
Okay.
then I think we could also probably talk about Skull and Dial of Destiny.
Sounds good. All right, so we'll do it in that order. Temple of Doom, Crystal Skull, and Dial of Destiny. Kerri, you said Temple of Doom first. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I can start. This is one, and I'll say I didn't watch any of the Indiana Jones movies until I was older. I think probably in the past 5 years or so, we watched them for the first time. I'll say with each rewatch, Temple of Doom has actually gone down a little bit for me. The first time I watched it, I thought it was good, but each time, I don't know, I just find more and more faults with it. And I think my main thing why it's last for me is Indiana Jones's counterpart in this movie, Willie, is, I think, just horribly written. A lot of her character I just find so annoying, and it's hard to get through, honestly. That said, there are some truly wonderful things about this movie that I really love. I love Ke Huy Quan in this movie. He's adorable. I love, how he, saves the day. He brings Indiana Jones back to himself. He figures out how to get Indiana Jones back. Some of the special effects are really cool, even like the ones that are kind of corny and you can tell they're like using a dummy. I think it's really fun. And I do have a lot of love for it as like just a classic Indiana Jones movie. But to me, it's on my rewatches, it's just become the one I least like watching.
Totally fair. All right, Dan, what do you think about Temple of Doom? Are you going to redeem this one?
I'll tell you, I think I might redeem it a little bit here. I do, but I will agree. That is like what Kerri said is like nails on a chalkboard with Willie. I mean, she's just like, why are you screaming at every little thing in the world? I mean, is there something you can't scream at? But that's really the only non-redeeming quality to this movie, in my opinion. I actually like Ke Huy Quan. I think is fantastic. I think the stuff involving the cup, what's the cup again? The cup, they're picking the cup, and they have to pick the right cup.
That's Last Crusade.
Oh,
That's Last Crusade.
Yeah. The Holy Grail.
My bad.
Holy Grail, yeah.
Holy Grail, my bad. I screwed up.
Temple of Doom is the one with the stones of Sankara?
Yeah.
The Sankara
And the heart.
stones.
And the heart.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
No, you're right. I got the temple
Together sometimes. It makes it's
It's
fine.
hard to remember I apologize. No, the temple, like they go to and they had this whole dance sequence, and then they're feeding them all this food, and one guy gets monkey brains. It's like, oh, great, monkey brains, just what I was about to eat dinner, and now I get monkey brains. The food that they're eating at the table. You're gonna go to a crazy place like this, and you're gonna get crazy food. You know what I mean? And then the wild stuff that's going on with it. And this is a prequel. People forget Temple of Doom is actually a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it shows you some of Indiana Jones's earlier adventures before we actually technically see him on the big screen. That means he's been doing this type of stuff for a while, you know what I mean? And the action, I love it seems like they always have some kind of weird animal, and then you just what was the animal in this? It was a bug, wasn't it? Scorpions or
A lot of bugs. There's a ton of bugs, centipedes, everything imaginable.
I can't stand bugs. So this is like cringeworthy. But get the bug. The bugs, those bugs look like they're huge bugs. And I don't do bugs. I don't do big bugs, little bugs, any kind of bugs. But that's why Alien and Aliens are the two scariest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Not Halloween or Friday the 13th or any of them. They don't scare me at all. Alien and Aliens scare the hell out of me. But yeah, I actually like Temple of Doom. I don't think it's as bad as people think. Willie, though, is the one redeeming thing that really kind of drags it down. But Ke Huy Quan brings it up.
Yeah, that's some good points there. And yeah, I think Temple of Doom takes place like a year before Raiders. So it's fun that it's a prequel. James, what do you think about Temple of Doom?
Yeah, I think Dan and Kerri kind of hit most of the points like I kind of had the problems with too. Obviously, you had such a different portrayal in the female character in this one compared to Marion Wood. That I think it was just too much of an opposite kind of direction they went with that. Yeah, it made it pretty obnoxious, the whole thing. I think the one thing that kind of got to me, and this is more of like this could just be more of like a historical inaccuracy itself, but at that dinner where they're eating all those like crazy like bugs and they were eating like the monkey brains, like I'm pretty sure in Hinduism, Hanuman is the monkey god, so I'm pretty sure they would probably not have been eating like half the things they would have ate actually at that dinner table, especially like monkey brains themselves. That kind of stuck out to me. Like I thought I almost shipped that, so it was weird that they kind of went with that kind of feel for like the dinner and like the palace that they're at.
They didn't do that.
Just kind of stuck out. Like, I'm sorry.
They obviously didn't do their research, James.
Yeah, probably not enough of it yet, too. But that's kind of what stuck out for me too. It doesn't make the entire movie bad, but I think in the grand scheme of the other Indiana Jones movies, I just like some of the other ones more.
Yeah. Dylan, Temple of Doom.
Yeah, I have this at number 4. This was my like lowest ranked. Well, I mean, up until the new one came out, it was my lowest ranked, and I guess it still is considering the new one I have below it. But I do definitely like this more on a rewatch, only because I think, well, the negatives we've kind of cleared up, like with the cultural insensitivity, and Spielberg has even come out to say he apologizes for a lot of the racist stuff in it. And then, of course, Kate Capshaw, not her performance, because she was directed that way, it's not her fault, but, the whininess of her character, which is funny because he went on to marry her, Steven Spielberg went on to marry Kate Capshaw, so, and she's still married to him, so I guess she's not as whiny in real life. But I think what's so funny, and it actually has to do with marriage, is I like... This kind of sounds weird to say I like this, but it's interesting looking at filmmakers' films, the first film they make after a divorce, because for some reason, I think that's sometimes when you get like the biggest swings or the biggest misses, and you see it a little bit with James Cameron with True Lies. You even see it nowadays with like Jason Sudeikis with Ted Lasso. Like these really interesting projects that come out of real life things happening in their lives. And this film came out right after Steven Spielberg and George Lucas's divorces. So you have these two guys who have like all this animosity. Some of it is negatively charged towards women, which isn't great, but you can kind of see there's an overall kind of darkness here that isn't present in a lot of the other Indiana Jones movies, because I think Steven Spielberg and George Lucas were both at like darker points in their lives. And I think because of that, there's actually some really interesting swings taken. I think there's some bold swings with the production design, the overall darker tones. I think the like kind of pulling the heart out of the chest. It's very dark. It's pushing the boundaries. I mean, this is the reason why we have a PG-13 rating. And I think for that reason, I always find Temple of Doom to be really fascinating to watch, because it's like kind of this turning point in cinema where like you started to see these directors just kind of take things that were familiar and kind of put a darker twist on it. Because right around this time is also when Empire Strikes Back came out, and that put a darker twist on Star Wars. So I think it's really interesting to see that from that retrospect. And of course, Ke Huy Quan's great, but also just the set pieces. I actually think this has some of my favorite direction in the franchise because of the minecart chase, like the whole almost like roller coaster like way they filmed that is so exciting. I think the stuff on the bridge where they're falling, where the bridge is like hanging down the cliff and they have to try to climb up of it and not fall into the alligators. Like, I think it really has some great moments of direction and some great set pieces. It's just the other things kind of hold it back, though I do think this has some of the biggest swings in the whole franchise. And for that, I think it's very admirable for those reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I pretty much agree with what everything everybody has said here. I wildly enjoy all of these films for different reasons. Even though I ranked Temple of Doom last, quick fact check though. I'm not sure if you said this, Dylan, but it's rated PG, but it did inspire the PG-13 rating. Okay, I'm sure you said that.
It's the reason we have it, not the first example of
it. Which is kind of cool. Like, that is a really cool thing about that. You go, Temple of Doom was the first one that said, hey, maybe we need an in-between rating between PG and R, because this one's kind of fucked up a little bit. My opinions on this, waver a lot as well. I kind of go Kerri's way is why I ranked it 5 is because I think half of this movie is really good. And I think the other half is kind of skippable in a way. It's like once you get to the underground, it's really fun and stuff like that. But there's no like to me like this big like overarching story in this one that's really too compelling. I think it's just a lot of like fun, stuff that they were able to create. I agree about Willie. I think she's, not great. I don't like how she's written. I find her very annoying, although there are some parts where she's not that bad. I mean, she does like go through all those bugs to save their lives. If that were me, Indy and Short Round would be dead right now because I would not have gone through all those bugs. And I'm sure Dan thinks the same thing. So sorry, Indy and Short Round. You're cute, but and speaking of Short Rounds, he is one of my favorite things in the entire franchise. I love him so much. He's got like a lot of really great like redemption now with Everything Everywhere All at Once. But like back then, he was like one of the biggest like kids like that, like Temple of Doom and Goonies. Just such a really good presence in Hollywood back in the day, and I'm glad I want to see a lot more of him because he's just got like such a great presence. I love his voice. Especially watching that movie, the new movie, hearing his voice, I'm like, that's Short Round. It's just so cool. And yeah, I just think he's really adorable and a really good companion. Probably the best indie companion, I would probably say, or at least my favorite. Yeah, and then the last part is really fun, but yeah, and the beginning. I do love the opening as well, like Dan said, with the dancing and trying to get the crystal and the you drank poison, Dr. Jen, stuff like that. Just really cool. A lot of that stuff. I really dig. I like the minecart stuff. I like the bridge sequence. So there is a lot of really great stuff in it, but I think it's just half of a good movie and half of a movie. Like I skipped that dinner scene entirely this time. I was like, I don't need to see the monkey brain thing. Like it upsets me. It just annoys me, and I'm just like, I really don't need to see it. It's kind of like, I love John Wick, but I always skip the dog part at the beginning now because it's not once. Don't need to see it again. But yeah, I dig Temple of Doom, but it is ranked lowest to me, although it might kind of switch with my 4 and 5 might switch a little bit. If I were to rank this tomorrow, it could be a little different. I don't know. So yeah. So Crystal Skull is next.
Yeah.
All right. Dan, do you want to start with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. Number one, I think Kate Blanchett is the next coming of Meryl Streep. Number one. Number two, how about get some real damn monkeys? Why do we got to get CGI monkeys?
Go first.
Millions of monkeys in the world. You can't get some dang real monkeys and trained monkeys to do what you want. You're gonna get CGI monkeys. And number three, I'm sorry. I actually like Shia LaBeouf in some things, like Disturbia, the first Transformers, and some. I did not like him as Mutt Lange, as the son of Indiana Jones. I did not like him as Mutt Lange, unfortunately, in this movie. And I just look. I think they did try to do a good job. Nobody makes a movie to go out of their way to make a bad movie on purpose. Even bad movies, they're not trying to make bad movies on purpose. I just don't think this was a very good movie. We had Russians in this. We got away from the Germans. We went with some Russians in this a little bit. Am I correct, guys?
Yes, you are. Yeah, you are. They're Russian.
It's like I think Indiana Jones has added strength when we're hating on Nazis. We all love to hate on Nazis. Now of course maybe Russians wouldn't be that bad to hate on them either. But
yeah. Ahead of its time, that Crystal Skull. It's like,
yeah, 20 years before it's, but maybe it would have done better now. Who knows? But yeah, those are kind of the main things. But there was some good action in this. I think there was, I don't know, this and Raiders both have a great truck scene, like a truck through dirt roads and all kinds of craziness, motorcycles hanging off a truck. I'll tell you what. They are amazing how they can do some of these stunt people. Where is the stunt Academy Award category? I mean, this is getting ridiculous. All right, sorry, I don't want to get on that. That's my thoughts on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I didn't mind the alien stuff at all either, by the way. I mean, it's all these movies are a bit fanciful and sci-fi. So I mean, who cares? Whatever, you know. Time now we get time travel in the new one, so whatever, you know. Well, spoiler.
Yeah, obviously the elephant in the room, the Crystal Skull is like the lowest rated of a lot of movies. A lot of people hate this one, but it looks like Dan has kind of a lukewarm take on it. Doesn't love it, doesn't hate it. Cool. James, what do you think about Crystal Skull Kingdom?
Yeah, I think a lot of the CGI doesn't really help this. Yeah, there's 2,000 monkeys, but you could have like at least a few of them swinging on the vines. You could have like copied and pasted something like the image of them or something. You didn't need to have every single one be like that. I didn't really like in the beginning. I mean, this is me being me about the movie when he throws the gunpowder up into the air and it kind of floats through the warehouse. Like, come on, really? I'm sorry. You know how magnetic something has to be gunpowder to attract to it, especially a little handful of it. So that off the bat was a bit much. Same thing with surviving that nuclear blast in the way he did. I mean, yeah, you can repel radiation bloodline stuff. He was sealed in the thing the whole time, but to take that kind of a fly and that kind of a tumble and get up and walk out, like, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. I'm just not. And I know Indiana Jones is all about like the grand adventure. Like it's the main part of most of these movies. Yeah, you've got him standing up with the mushroom cloud in the background. Like it makes for a cool shot. It does. I'm not going to lie, but it just takes so out kind of right off the bat. And then yeah, the alien, I don't think I minded either. I think with the first three that we got, there wasn't quite so outlandish, really. I mean, I know there's always going to be some like occulty type stuff going on. There's always the supernaturals like a part of all these movies, but I think it's okay given that it took place in the 50s when the whole like kind of aliens kind of space racing started anyway with Area 51 and whatnot. So I get why they went that way too, and it doesn't really bother me that much. I think again with some of the performances, I know Shia LaBeouf was just off of Transformers a year earlier, 2 years earlier, something like that. So like I could see why they tried to kind of get him in on this, but I don't think his character worked out. But I feel like at the same time he was the one like maybe almost trying the hardest. Like I think the only real like callback that we to probably like Indiana Jones interaction is with him. And when Marion Ravenwood comes back, when they kind of start, kind of going at each other, snapping at each other, things like that, get that sense of like that connection the two characters had. But I feel like outside of that, it might have been Shia LaBeouf actually like putting himself or trying to put himself in this movie. I like Ray Winstone a lot, but I don't know like how great of a like purpose his characters serve, really, because it's the whole kind of like stereotypical like backstabber, like I am, I'm not, I am, or you're a triple agent was said at one point. So it's like that felt a little bit cop out to me. I think we had a really, really good chance to get something out of John Hurt, and I feel like it kind of fell a bit flat in this one. He's had great roles in like so many other films, but I feel like it's just kind of like a clue pointer type deal here. So I mean, I like John Hurt a lot, but I don't know if what they had him for in this movie really worked that well. So despite all that being said, I do find this movie kind of strangely entertaining to a great degree, but it's at the bottom of the list.
Not bad. All right, Dylan, what do you think about Crystal Skull?
I love this one. I'm like the one person in the world. That's not true, actually. Matt Chapman also does. We did a show on it on my channel, but I think a lot of the things I love about Crystal Skull are like the things people criticize. Like they say it's too corny, but I kind of love the corniness, especially because, I'm not a dad, obviously, and maybe you can attest to this, Chad, but like when you're dad, you like telling dad jokes. So I was like, I kind of didn't mind the fact that there was a little cornier, because when you get older, you get cornier. I don't know. It was kind of fun. And it's not quippy in the MCU way where it feels like it's a punchline. It almost feels like it's its own style of humor that I really appreciate. And I think the CGI, yeah, it's bad, but I also think when you're looking at the serials that inspired these movies, a lot of those old 50s sci-fi serials, the visuals were crap on those too. I mean, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians are all wearing cardboard boxes as robots. Like, I don't think it's supposed to look good. And obviously they tried to make it look good and it didn't. It's not like they were trying to make it look bad, but I think there's almost a charm to the fact that the visuals are very much of the 2000s, kind of like the prequels of Star Wars were, where it's like, it almost feels reminiscent of a time, just like those sci-fi serials felt of a time, to where I actually kind of appreciate that there's almost like a lack of timelessness with these movies, or with this movie specifically, because it's not the old Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones himself is older, so I don't mind that they didn't go back to Nazis, or they didn't go back to all practical effects. I like that they took, like, kind of like what I said with Temple of Doom, took bigger swings to just try to do something different. And while it doesn't always work, I do think it is successful in capturing the overall spirit of Indy. I mean, Steven Spielberg himself, just by nature of directing it, captures that enthusiasm, that energy really well. So I have a lot of fun with this. I don't mind the aliens either. I honestly wish we spent a little more time with the aliens at the end. It kind of just comes and goes. I agree Ray Winstone is underutilized. I don't necessarily think John Hurt is. I think he's fine. He doesn't stand out, but he also doesn't detract anything from me. And I think another reason I love it so much is because a lot of the reason I love the first film, spoiler alert, and why it's one of my favorite films is Karen Allen, and you don't have her in the next two movies, and bring her back. I think there's a really nice dynamic there, to where I think the Mutt storyline actually does work, because now Indy is the father dealing with his son, whereas last time we saw him, he was the son dealing with his father. So I think there's a kind of a cool full circle narrative there. I really think it works really well as a legacy sequel for all those reasons, and I think there's also something nice about it being in 2008, right before the brink of like MCU, DCU, where everything had to like tease a future movie or set up something else. I like how at the end they kind of give you that tease where Shia LaBeouf's about to pick up that, and Harrison Ford says nope, because we're not interested. We're not interested in expanding the franchise. We're telling our own story, and if it continues here, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm Indy. I'm always going to be Indy, and like that's kind of cool to me. I don't know. I like how it didn't try to be like next up in the Indiana Jones. No, it's just existing as its own story, and I really like that. I remember loving it when I saw it in the theaters, and maybe it's also because I saw it when I was 10 years old in the theaters. So like this is the one that I remember on the big screen. But I get where the criticisms are coming from other people, not from you guys. You guys obviously were much nicer to it than other people online have been. But the overall hate for it, I don't really get it. I think a lot of people, like, the main thing is it's corny and the visuals look bad, but I think Indiana Jones has always been kind of corny, and the visuals, while they've always looked good, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that the visuals are of its time, because Indy's very much reminiscent of a very specific time period, depending on when it takes place. So I don't know. I love it. I haven't said where it's in my ranking, but you'll find out later.
All right. Yeah, you can tell us later if you want. I've been on kind of like a little bit of a roller coaster with this one. I really liked it when I saw it in the theater for the first time, and then the conversation around it afterwards was it's terrible. Indiana Jones, is dead. It's been, tainted, or whatever you want to say. Like, we had a great trilogy. We've already said that, maybe not the best trilogy if you look at Temple of Doom. It's for some of us, I guess. And then this movie came out and it's garbage. And I feel like that, when like the conversation around a film like this just gets so prevalent, and like it seems like everybody has that take, that it just becomes the truth. And so for me, especially before I started actually getting into actually trying to criticize films and analyze them and stuff like that, I just went, oh, it's bad. Okay, I thought it was good, but I guess it's bad. So on rewatches, I've gone, do I like this? But this most recent one, I really like this. So I'm kind of more on Dylan's wavelength here. I don't know if I want to say I love it, but I think on other rewatches, I probably would. I really, really like the storyline between Indy and his son Mutt, because he doesn't know it's his son at first, and then he's like, yeah, follow your dreams, kid. Just do whatever you want. And then as soon as it's his son, he's like, why did you quit school? You should have stayed in school. And I love all the sequences with him and Marion and the son, and the back and forth, and talking about, I've been with a lot of women or whatever, but they all had the same problem. They weren't you. It's a very sweet movie. There's a lot of really sweet stuff in it. A lot of really good writing, I think. I love when he's going on his adventure with Mutt, and it's almost like he's like training Mutt to be the next new Indiana Jones. But then, like Dylan said, it doesn't really take a stance at the end. Like it kind of winks and nods, like, you know, a little bit with the hat thing, but then it's like, sorry, Junior, like that's my hat, you know, kind of deal. You get your own, you make your own thing. And we'll talk about it later, but I wish they could have went on with Shia as a character. I'm not saying the next Indiana Jones, but a character in like the next movie. I think it would have made that one a little bit stronger. Because I don't know, I like Shia LaBeouf a lot. I know he's got like weird stays. He's a very eccentric, kind of problematic person in real life. I don't know everything about all that, but him in this movie and other movies too, and even Stevens that I love. You know, I like him as an actor, and I just thought he was really good. A lot of the emotional stuff, like when he saw John Hurt's character and was worried about him, you know, you really feel that. And John Hurt, especially too, I like the whole like, you know, he kind of like lost his mind because of the alien stuff, and then, you know, he was slowly like getting it back and like leading them to clues. I don't know, I like a lot of that stuff, like the old man who, you know, you can still see that twinkle in his eye and stuff like that. And you know, the alien stuff definitely doesn't bother me. It's just like any other Indiana Jones thing. It's just not religious. It's maybe, depending on who you are, more realistic than the religious stuff, actually, because you know, aliens most likely exist. We can get into that another time. But yeah, I think this movie's fun. It definitely has its problems. I know people don't like the vine swinging thing. Some parts are really silly and campy, and it's whatever. It doesn't feel necessarily like you know, Steven Spielberg like directed in some ways with those sequences, but maybe it does. I don't know, on other times. And you know, I don't think those are like huge detractors from it. I think it's fun. I think it's enjoyable. I think it actually does have a good story. Whereas like that's why I rank Temple of Doom lower, because I don't think that one actually has the good, like the sequences may be directed better, like towards the end, but I don't think it has like an actual story from beginning to end that actually you care about. Yeah, I like this one a lot. I rank this at my number 3. I'll say Kerri.
Chad,
but-
when you said when you were talking about Shia and you were like talking about other things you loved, and you went even Stevens, like other stuff he's been, even Stevens. I was like, even Stevens. I thought you meant like Steven Spielberg stuff. I was like, what other Steven Spielberg stuff? Like even Stevens' other stuff. Like what about Stevens' other stuff? What has he done? And I'm like racking my brain for a whole minute, being like, what other Shia stuff? But he might have. Yeah, but I was like, now I get it. And I also love even Stevens. But it was just funny because I was so dumb. I was like, what other? Because I was like trying to think, I was like, wow, I want to go check those out because I don't, you know, because I haven't seen all Steven Spielberg's movies. He's my favorite director, but I haven't seen all of them. But
yeah, like to a lot of people who are older, Shia might seem like just like this weird guy that's problematic and, you know, maybe not the best of actors or something like that. But like to me, he was Louis Stevens, and I always wanted to be like him when I was a kid. So I have a kind of a fondness for him. You know,
what was the one where he played his own father?
Honey Boy?
Oh, fantastic.
Honey Boy, yeah.
Fantastic in that, if you haven't seen that. I mean,
yeah,
really just...
And Peanut Butter Falcon. So there's a lot of really good movies Shia's been in. He's been great in them. So
too bad he's an awful person.
Yeah. Well,
what can you do? It seems like everybody
cannot encourage that behavior by not hiring him.
No, I was gonna say, like, it seems like everybody in Hollywood is becoming like that. So I don't know. Like,
guess what? Hollywood's got real people like the rest of the world. Oh, God forbid.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll talk to Shia another time. That was the only movie he's been in. We can move on.
I want to hear Kerri's thoughts.
Oh, Kerri. We won't move on. We have to get Kerri. I classically do this a lot to Kerri.
I know.
Because she comes after me all the time. And I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think you just get so like wrapped up in what you're saying.
I do.
Okay. Yeah, this was my number 4. Yeah, there are things I think I agree a lot with what everyone like pieces of what everyone else has said. There are certain elements to the story I do really like. I think Kate Blanchett in this movie is really strong. I love that Marion Ravenwood returns here. I think that's one of the best parts of this movie. I know it's something like the older audience, like my parents, really enjoyed that aspect of this movie as well. I don't particularly, I know like the CGI is a little campy. I don't particularly enjoy it, especially when, you know, the Indiana Jones films have this history of just these fantastic practical effects. And Steven Spielberg had obviously before this point in time used much better CGI. And some of it I can get past, but like the alien scenes, I think to me in particular, it just take me out of it so far. But it is very of its time. I actually don't really like. I agree kind of with what Dan and James were saying about Shia LaBeouf in this movie. For some reason, his character just doesn't really work for me. And I don't know if it's something about his acting or the direction or just the way the character is written or maybe all of it combined. But, you know, as much as I enjoy the parts with Marion, kind of the parts with Mutt kind of take me out of it a little bit. And I don't quite enjoy as much. But overall, still, I think a good entry. I like the story of it. And I still enjoy watching it.
It might just be like the whole father-son thing that really gets me. That's why I can get past what everybody else sees. But yeah, no worries. Yeah, great thoughts all around. Let's move on to Dial.
Yeah.
The Dial of Destiny.
Dylan.
My favorite soap.
Dylan, his favorite movie of the year so far.
The Deal of Destiny.
Oh, the Deal of Destiny.
Come on, Dylan, let's go. Let's give it to us.
Do you want to start with the Dial of Destiny?
Come on, the Dill of Destiny. Give it to us.
Yeah, sure. So I had this one actually at number 3. I was kind of surprised with how much I liked this, even like at the end. I know you could kind of almost rank these based on like the overall absurdity or like supernatural like effects of this or like the occulty kind of stuff that goes down. Time travel to me may have been even like kind of a stretch like along like the whole like alien thing with Crystal Skull, but I thought it was pretty cool how like they went into like a little bit of like Archimedes himself, like the artifact they tried to find was actually like pretty cool. I felt like really returned to what we get in the like the first 3 as far as like that whole sense of over like adventure. I think all of that was done really well. I like Mads Mikkelsen. I think he did a great job in this movie. I know you get the kind of stereotypical, like, I'm going to, you know, let's go find Indiana Jones. I want my artifact back, that kind of thing. But I think he did such a great job with his role. I don't know how well the de-aging worked in the beginning of this movie. It's painfully obvious in a scene or two. I think it actually, like, kind of to some degree, but there really is a spot or two where it doesn't hold up. I don't know how well de-aging has gone for Hollywood itself. They spent too much money on it in The Irishman, and I don't think it worked all that well in Captain Marvel. But it is what it is. They'll do what they can to make the actors look young because it takes place back in the like early to mid 30s. That part of it at least. But I thought this was actually a pretty interesting movie. I like the concept. I like really kind of how it kind of returns to what we would expect from an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, perfect. Deal of Destiny.
All right, I don't have an hour. I don't have an hour for you to wax hateful about this.
No. Here's the thing. I love the Indiana
I'm joking. I love you, Dylan. You know, I'm joking.
No, I know. I think it's interesting because like I have it last, but I think that's more so that I love the other 4 more, and I've also spent more time with the other 4. I've only seen this one once, so like naturally I can't say like, oh, this is better than a movie I've been watching since I was 10 years old that I watch a lot because I like it. You know, I like this movie. I think honestly, in terms of its story and the character moments and the relationships, I think this does a really good job in making a fitting end to Indy. The fact that he's so obsessed with history, so this final adventure he gets to actually be a part of it and go to the history he's loved his whole life. I think that's a really cool aspect of it, and the idea of this whole overarching looming thing of time and dealing with time and looking back and reflecting. And I've heard some people say it feels almost tired because he's old, but like, yeah, he's old, he's tired. So is Logan, and same director. But I think the problem is, and I just said it, I think it's the fact that it's no longer in Spielberg's hands. And I'm not saying a single director has to do every single film in a franchise, but I do feel like there's just a little bit of the spark, at least for me, that was missing with this new direction. And I don't think it's James Mangold's fault. I don't think he's a bad director. I just think when any director is working under this like kind of Lucasfilm Disney thing, I think they, ever since Last Jedi, I think a lot of people are hesitant. A lot of the studios are hesitant to like give their directors too much free reign. It's why a lot of people have said that a lot of the newer MCU stuff feels a little bit too much of the same, at least aesthetically, and why like the Rise of Skywalker people weren't fans of. And I think this is for me what I think a lot of people felt with those, where it like felt almost like the studio was hired James Mangold to direct their movie rather than James Mangold saying, this is my vision. Because if you look at Logan, it has a very distinct style. Wolverine has a distinct style. Ford vs. Ferrari has a distinct style. Whereas I feel like here it doesn't feel like it. It feels like Disney is the style. But I think that's like one element in the midst of so many other things that I like about it. So I don't want to dwell too much on the negative. The de-aging, I didn't hate it as much. I thought it looked fine. I just think when they decided to like shine lights on his face, that's when it was noticeable. I wish they'd almost just kept it all darker. And then later on, when they're like diving into the water, I wanted to see them, and then they obscured their faces by putting masks on all of them. It's like, no, you should have instead obscured the de-aging in the beginning to make them look darker, and then lightened up this section so we could actually see them diving. But I get it. He's older. They need to mask his stunt double. I get it. But I don't know. I think it takes a little time in the middle, goes on a little long, but I think it ends really, really amazingly. I think it starts really awesomely. I really like the opening sequence, even with the de-aging. I think it's an exciting action set piece. It's really fun. Second best action set piece on a train this year, or month, I guess. I just think that whole horse through the subway thing is such an awesome set piece as well. I think it's really good. It's just not as good as the other four, but it's 5 movies. If they were to make 5 more of these, there's a chance this stays at number 5. You know what I mean? It's the newest one. I haven't grown enough with it, and I think I prefer the Spielberg touch more than the Disney touch, and I wish they let Mangold have a little bit more of a presence in the direction. But that's it. I really do like it. I think it's really fun, and I love the time travel. I think it was such an emotional ending, and then when they added the extra ending on the end, like they give us 2 great endings, which was awesome. So.
Yeah, no, I actually mirror a lot of your thoughts, Dylan and James too. I think this one is good. I like this one. But yeah, like actually you reminded me, you got me thinking about this a little bit of how they could have done the opening scene a little bit better, because I don't mind de-aging if it's, consented to, if like the actors can consent to it. Like when they're dead and people try to bring them back, I'm like, don't do that. That's disrespectful. But if it's like Harrison Ford can consent, sure, try it, as long as you can make it look good and immerse us in the movie. Here, I think they did a pretty good job. Like when it first started out, I was like, holy shit. It's like we're watching an old Indiana Jones movie right now. I just thought that was so cool. But then, yeah, there were certain times where, especially when like he was in like motion and doing a lot of the action stuff, I was like, all right, it's starting to look like a cartoon. And I think maybe if Spielberg would have directed this with the de-aging, I think maybe he could have did that whole lighting thing that you were talking about, Dylan, a little bit better, because it's what Spielberg does fantastically, is like lighting and the way he does the shots. He always makes sure the horizon is not in the middle, right? I really enjoyed this one. I rank it a little bit lower than Crystal Skull. It doesn't go as hard for me as like Rise of Skywalker does in trying to erase the movie that came before it, but it does that a little bit with the spoiler alert for the Dial of Destiny if you haven't seen it. The way they kill off Mutt and just have Marion like kind of estranged from Indy. And even though they get back together at the end, it's not like the strongest, I think, storyline, but I think like the acting and all that stuff around it works. Where that's kind of like the big thing that's weighing on them. And I like Phoebe Waller-Bridge in this. I think she's pretty great. And then the kid, I don't know his name, but the kid, I think there are a couple great companions for Indy going through this, and both are like very resourceful and just fun to watch. It is harder when he's older and he can't do a lot of the same stuff that he used to be able to do as far as like stunts and stuff, but he does enough, I think, that makes it watchable. Mads, I agree, is pretty great, like a classic kind of villain, but that's what this franchise is like classic, uh archetypes of a villain and stuff like that. So you get that. And yeah, I love the time travel stuff. I almost thought it could have, because I don't know if they're going to make any more, but I almost thought it could have been a cooler ending if they would have had the three, Indy and his two companions, stuck in the past, and then they had to work with Archimedes to get back to their present in the next movie. I was wondering if that was going to happen. I was like, that would be interesting if that had happened. I would hate it if Indy dies right now. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. Because I just would have hated that. I don't know. A lot of people are like, we want permadeath in movie. I'm like, you can just have like less death. I think is fine, unless there's a really good story reason for it or something. Like you're sacrificing yourself for something.
Yeah, like Logan or Last Jedi. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of really great stuff in it. And it's one of those things, exactly what Dylan said. I need more time to sit with it and see if it can be, but there's only 5 movies. I don't know how far this would go up, even if I would like it more in like a second watch. But I did really dig quite a bit of it, but I would say like maybe a little too long. It probably could have cut down, 15, 20 minutes out of it. Maybe it could have been like, I think a good indie movie is like 2 hours long. Like you don't really need all this, stuff or whatever, like some sequence they could have cut out. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I want to check this one out again soon. Yeah, I dug it. Kerri, what do you think?
Yeah,
I didn't forget this time.
Yeah, I have this at number 3. So this is right in the middle for me. I enjoyed it a lot more than I kind of thought I would, especially at the beginning. When they started the de-aging, I agree with everyone. It didn't look fantastic. But looking back, I don't know how they could have done it differently and still had as great of a storyline as they did. I think if you just explained like what the Dial of Destiny was and like didn't show, kind of them getting it, it probably wouldn't have been as effective. Mm-hmm. So I understand why they did it. It doesn't look fantastic. But overall, I really enjoyed the story. Yeah, I really liked Phoebe Waller-Bridge and the character of Teddy. They were great companions. I thought the action was pretty good in this movie. The car chase scene was good. The top of the train scene was good. The eel stuff was kind of cool.
They're kind of like snakes. Don't say that.
I really love that whole ending to this movie too. I love that they went where they did. I love that the dial was always actually meant to take whoever figured it out back to that specific moment in time. That was really cool. So yeah, overall, I don't love it as much as my number 1 and my number 2, but still, I think a great indie film.
Hell yeah! All right. I guess we're going to what, number 3?
Oh, Dan.
Dan.
Go
ahead.
I know I'm unforgettable. I know I'm a forgettable person. I know that. You guys, just listening to you guys talk about this, I think I might have switched places with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull here with this, because I'll tell you, I had a really, really bad experience with this movie the first time around. I don't know if any of you guys know this, but I was in a theater where the projector wasn't projecting the movie properly, and it looked like everything was dark. I mean, you guys are talking about the beginning being dark and all this. I mean, everything was dark, and it's like I go and tell the lady, I said, "Hey, there's something wrong with the projector. The movie's projecting dark." Oh, it's fine. Everything's fine. That's the way it's supposed to look. Oh, great. I talked to 10 people in the preceding week after that. Oh, yeah, it looked dark, but it was still good. I'm like, no, it ruined the movie for me. I wanted it projected properly. And so finally, I got to see it in Dolby a week later, and it opened my eyes to the movie. But listening to what you guys are saying really kind of has soured me on the movie. All right, first of all, I really don't think the de-aging is that bad. But do y'all remember Ready Player One? I think somebody got aged up. What was his name? Mark Rylance got aged up, and that did not look good at all. So Spielberg dealt with de-aging or reverse aging, and it wasn't good. So we can't compare this director and him because neither one of them. I don't think the de-aging was that bad. I think this is actually some of the better de-aging I've seen in movies. Marvel has some horrendous de-aging. Let's aging down. How about Robert Downey Jr., Kurt Russell? I mean, some terrible de-aging. So let's not pick on the de-aging in this. All right, could they have gotten Anthony and Gruber to play him as a young Indy? Probably, but what are you gonna do? Because the guy looks identical to him, sounds just like him. I mean, it's like a twin at that age for Harrison Ford, Anthony and Gruber. If you don't know who the guy is, go look him up. But I actually loved the train sequence. I thought that stuff was great, except for one thing. Who gets knocked off a train by a pole and doesn't die? How does that guy come back to life? There's no broken leg.
Ethan Hunt doesn't.
Nothing wrong with Mads Mikkelsen. I think any one of us gets knocked off a train by a pole, we're dead. We're probably crippled for life. How does this guy come back? He looked great. I mean, Mads Mikkelsen looks great.
I was kind of half expecting after that. I kind of forgot about that, but when I did see that part, I was like, "Oh, he's going to be like deformed, like a Bond villain or something."
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the guy's like perfect. He's like, "What the heck is going on here?" And the other thing is, I actually did like a lot of the action sequences. I thought Phoebe Waller-Bridge was a great, because they haven't really had a foil, like a good bad foil type of character like that. You had the screaming one in Temple of Doom. You had the good one in Raiders. You had the evil one in Crystal. So this one's kind of like, she's kind of like her own person in a way. She wants to be her own man, for lack of a better word. Yeah, I mean, I really liked it. Like 90% of this movie. The worst part of the movie for me, and I hate, is the last third of the movie. I think the time travel stuff is horrendous. It's terrible. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And there's some dumb things I've seen in movies. That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in a movie in a long time. To go back to the Archimedes and the Battle of Syracuse.
Have you seen Hypnotic yet?
I would have Mads Mikkelsen go back and do Tarantino's version of killing Hitler and the world is different, come back to a different world. To me, that was more interesting to me. I know, let's revisionist history. Have Mikkelsen go back, kill Hitler. He becomes the leader of Germany, and then Germany is the ruler of the world or some crap. That would have been interesting to me. Not this whole go back to the time of the guy. That was awful. I mean, awful, in my opinion. That really soured me on the movie both times I saw it. So I actually think I'm flipping now. I'm flipping. While we're talking about this, I'm flipping Dial Destiny last and Crystal Skull fourth.
Wow. All right. I don't think that's you ranking with me first, but
I think it.
That might be.
It might be.
But it
actually
might be.
Yeah.
No,
I think
I
so,
think
actually.
like kind of miscounts.
I feel like I've switched before, but I don't know. I'd have to rewatch every episode to find out.
Listen, you guys will really, and maybe hate this movie more. But after the second time, I actually liked a lot of it. But now listen to you guys.
Interesting. It feels like you're the only one who's seen it twice. So
Yeah, well, the first, forget about it. You might as well throw the first time I saw it out. I mean, don't go to Regals, guys. I'm telling you, don't go to Regals. They're cheap. They don't fix their bulbs on their projectors. Their RPX is terrible. Regals are terrible. That's right. I'm saying that. I'm sure that all you guys closest theater here.
Anti-advertisement here.
Okay. Dan's opinions about Regal are his and his only.
I'm going to Regal Monday to see Haunted Mansion. Don't worry.
Anyways, no, it doesn't matter. You can have your opinions about whatever theater chain or specific theaters you want. Cool. So Dan switched. That was interesting. I love that. That's just a cool,
Not switching baseball teams, Dylan.
cool thing. Never.
That's okay. That's okay. Imagine that if during the during this recording, you're just like, screw it, Dylan, let's trade hats.
All right. Cool. So let's go on to our threes, right? Wait.
I think James will
Five,
start
four,
us.
three.
with
Yeah,
his
James will
three.
start with his three.
Oh, mine was Dial of Destiny. We just talked about that.
All right, Dylan.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Kingdom of the Crystal Skull here. I was gonna be different, but I gotta stay true to myself.
Yep. My three is also Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
My three was Dial of Destiny.
All right, Dan, three.
Actually, my three was Temple of Doom.
Wow, same top
Nice.
two for everyone. Is that a first?
I'm trying to think. It might not be.
I don't know if top two.
Yeah.
No, because Planet of the Apes
Okay.
was all.
Yeah, we were all pretty agreeable on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ranked 11 films.
For Planet of the Apes, it was 9.
9? Oh, is that what it was? 9?
Yeah. So cool. Let's go through our two.
Yeah.
We've discussed all those bottom ones already. All right. So Dylan, what is your two?
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
My number two, and I was surprised after this rewatch, is Raiders of the Lost Ark. I know.
My number two is also Raiders, and that was actually also a change on this rewatch.
Yeah. Dan, number two.
The Last Crusade.
James, number two.
Last Crusade.
All right, Kerri, we're in the minority here.
yeah.
Interesting.
So let's talk about Crusade first, and then Raiders.
All right, Dylan, The Last Crusade.
I was gonna say either way, Last Crusade would have been slightly under Raiders because originally I had Last Crusade at 3 and Crystal Skull at 2, but then I switched it because I was like, you know what? Because in my mind, this will segue to me talking about it. Those two are like tied for my second favorite. It's like I have my favorite, and then like right under that, it's like Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Because I think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for me is a more interesting like overarching story, but Last Crusade I think is better executed filmmaking wise and has better themes and emotion. So I ultimately went with Last Crusade though, because I mean that father dynamic is so great, and you get a little bit of it in Crystal Skull, and you get some of it in when he talks about Mutt in Dial of Destiny. But Last Crusade's interesting because in terms of the action of it, we had that great opening sequence with River Phoenix, and then at the end there's some really interesting, cool set pieces with the bridge that's invisible, and then they throw the sand on it, which I freaking love. I love that, and then the floor where how it like kind of drops out underneath, like all that stuff is so cool. But in the middle, it's like I think it just kind of is more rooted in like conversation than it is in action. And originally, I sometimes when I'd watch this, I'd get a little bored by it. But I think actually watching The Fabelmans, which I always try to find a way to bring it back to The Fabelmans, actually made me like this more because in The Fabelmans, you get a lot of great stuff about Stephen and his parents, or I guess Sammy and his parents. And I think because of that, now when I watch Spielberg movies, I'm always looking for those familial themes. And after watching The Fabelmans, I feel like I understand this film a lot more because it's not trying to be this like rousing action blockbuster. It is at times, but I think more so it's supposed to be this story of father and son. And I think that's something I underrated about this film the first time I saw it. And I think every time I rewatch it, I kind of get more and more of Stephen and his own father in this, and Sammy Fabelman and his father, that kind of parallel of the father who says, to quote the Fabelmans, it's just a hobby. Dad, stop calling it a hobby. You could insert Indiana's not your real name. Yes, it is, Dad. Like that kind of thing where it's like the dad is telling you this thing, but the kid wants to be this thing. And it's about the dad kind of getting approval. And that's like a very broad theme, but obviously it's much more nuanced in Last Crusade than just that. But I really enjoy it for that dynamic and for the moments with Sean Connery and Harrison Ford. As much as I think it kind of retreads a lot of the same stuff from Raiders, just because Temple of Doom was polarizing at the time, so it wanted to play it a little safer. Let's go back to Nazis. Let's make it almost like a legacy sequel. Let's do this cool flashback. But I think it works in this sense because of the emotional core with the father-son dynamic added to it. If it didn't have that dynamic and it was just Indy versus the Nazis again, I think it would have felt a little bit more like we're pulling from the same barrel. But I think they find just enough to make it different and make it unique enough. I miss Karen Allen in this, but I think and I don't think the new love interest is particularly interesting. I think that's also what sets it below the other film that I have at number one. But I still think it's a really good movie, and it's one that I think grows on me more every time I watch it. So.
Yeah, great. I will say Karen Allen is one of the best parts of the franchise. So I agree there. Although I do think the woman in Last Crusade I think is interesting in that there's a twist with her, like, you know, she's a Nazi kind of a deal, which kind of cool. I kind of look at it from a different perspective where it's, you know, you say it's kind of like a retread of Raiders with a little bit of emotion added in there. I think it's a little bit of a, and I'm Raiders is my number two, but I think it's a little bit of a better version of Raiders because it has that added emotion that the first one doesn't have. The first one is mostly just like an action adventure, but this one has like a really good story, I think, on top of it, that Raiders doesn't have as much of. That's why I love the whole dynamic between the father and the son. And I mean, yeah, you're right, Dylan, in that there are like is a good amount of action that's missing a little bit in the middle. But I mean, you still get like the boat chase, the going through the two ships, and don't go through the two ships. I thought you said do go through the two ships. You get like the tank chase and the stuff. I love like the stuff between him, Harrison, and Sean Connery when like Indy's doing the Indy stuff that he would normally do, and father's not impressed. Like he'll look over at the dad, and the dad's just like whatever, and then he's just like, what do I got to do to impress you, kind of a deal. But I love like at the ends, like, you know, when you have like the whole story between them, and it's like, you know, the father wasn't really there for the son. He was always trying to go out and, you know, get the next artifact and stuff like that. That's kind of like how Indy is. So he's taken a little bit from his dad, and then at the end, the dad is the one to say, let it go. It's not worth it. You know, that one woman died trying to get it, the grail and stuff like that. And I also love that, you know, Indy's the only one that can go in there, and while someone would go, it's something like ornate and beautiful, and you're like, no, Jesus was a carpenter. It'd be like really just wood, basically, would be the grail, because I think we would have warped that into our mind, like it's something royal and magical, but it's just wood. And yeah, I don't know. I like the end sequence. I like all the stuff that Dylan said about the, you know, the invisible path, and just all the trials that he has to go through, I think are really fun. You know, like this one's also like extremely quotable. So like you have all the stuff between the dad, and it's like our situation has not improved, and you know, just a lot of that stuff with the fire, and that's really intense, and how they escape that, and then they leave all those other guys in that room with the fire, and I don't know. There's just a lot of really fun stuff in it. And I really love the opening sequence as well with River Phoenix, rest in peace. Such a great actor who died way too young. But I love how he gets the thing, and then the guy's like, "You lost today, kid, but you don't have to be happy about it." And he wasn't, and he hasn't been since. But did they explain? But I have a question. Did they explain the whole thing to where at first he wasn't afraid of snakes and then he became afraid of snakes?
Yes.
How was that explained?
Because when he's running away with the cross through the circus train or whatever, he falls into like the pit of snakes, and in theory that explains.
Yeah. I felt like at the beginning he picked up a snake or something.
Yes, he did.
And then he fell into the vat, and that's when he.
Yes,
oh, okay,
yeah.
All right. Anyways, yeah, I really love this one a second time, but honestly, I think the Last Crusade and Raiders are so good that they would kind of like interchange for me a lot, because Raiders was my number one because it's the classic one, and then Last Crusade just worked for me this rewatch so much. I was like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people do sometimes rank Last Crusade number one, and I'm like,
yeah.
maybe they have a point. I think this one's pretty fantastic. But both of my number one and two are fantastic. Kerri.
Yeah.
Last Crusade.
Yeah. So I was the same as Chad. Going into this, Raiders was my number one, but on a rewatch, just watching them kind of all in a row. I don't know, something about Last Crusade. I just really loved the story. I love the interaction between Indiana Jones and Henry Jones. And I think the interaction, like Sean Connery and Harrison Ford, play off each other really well. Just a little bit of a deeper storyline, I guess, than the first movie. I think is just what puts it slightly above for me. Although they're both just so fantastic. I love, like Chad said, love River Phoenix in this movie. I love that we get a taste of Indiana Jones as a young boy. I'm trying to think of it if there was anything else I wanted to say about this movie. I think just some of the shots in this movie are actually really incredible. Just like I think some of this is just so beautifully shot.
Especially like that transition from the young Indiana Jones to him fighting on I think a boat or something with the hat and stuff. It's just so good.
Yeah.
Cool. Dan.
Yeah. Junior, is that you, Junior? I've been waiting this entire time to say that. Does that sound good? Junior? He's in there, he's fighting his way through this thing, and his dad's locked up in the thing. It's like, of all the people he could run into, it's his own father, you know what I mean? And I love that. And these Indy movies have really done a great job of having the good guy turn on Indy throughout but this one probably was one of the better ones because it was a love interest. The love interest ended up being the turncoat in there. But yeah, you guys said it. River Phoenix, the tank, and I said I actually mixed up my movies at the beginning, but I love. Dylan said it. That's going through that whole throwing the stand, seeing the invisible path, then the steps, and getting the right cup, cup and stuff like that. That stuff, I freaking loved all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, this is a two-hander. It's Harrison Ford and Sean Connery together, father-son. It's probably one of the best father-son movies when it comes to father-son relationships in films in the history of film, in my opinion. I did my top fathers of when it was Father's Day about a month ago or so.
Was Finding Nemo on there?
I forget, but I love Finding Nemo. I love Marlon, but I also like Henry Jones Sr. We named the dog Indiana. It's just some of that stuff is just so funny you can't help but laugh at it. And that's the kind of stuff when you're laughing, you're enjoying things. But it did capture a lot of the same feel, the action, the adventure of the first Raiders of the Lost Ark. Where, some of that stuff with Willie was kind of lost in Temple of Doom. But there was a lot of that action adventure stuff. These movies have really done a great job with that type of stuff. It's just from the 5, sometimes I miss the character stuff. And it really is a character study between this father. And when it comes to the father-son relationship, and this is much better than the father-son relationship in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. In my opinion, I think this is the better father-son movie in the trilogy. And the 5 films is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I absolutely love this film. I think it's great. I mean, if there was any Oscars, boy, I wonder, you guys are the Oscar guys. Did anybody get nominated for this? Sean Connery get nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this?
No. I don't think Harrison Ford was even nominated for the original. I don't think anyone has ever been nominated for an indie movie.
Did Untouchables come up before or after this?
Untouchables was before, 2 years before.
Okay, so he got his Oscar 2 years. I put money on it. If he hadn't won that Oscar 2 years, he might have won an Oscar this year. I don't remember what year this came out. You guys are much better.
89.
89. So who won in 89? Huh? But yeah, he probably would have won an Oscar for the Sean Connery because he's that good in this. You can tell he's having fun. The characters in this are having fun. And that's, to me, translates to the audience. The audience has fun.
Dan, to answer your question, it was Denzel and Glory. Sorry.
Oh, it wasn't Daniel.
Well, Daniel Day-Lewis won lead, but Sean Connery would have been up against Denzel for Glory.
That would have been
Denzel's
tough.
fantastic in Glory. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's great. He's great.
Should have been Danny Aiello for Do the Right Thing, but
Yeah.
Talk about it this week,
89, yeah, we boy. I can't wait to hear this one down the road, 89. But yeah, I absolutely love Kingdom. I mean, Last Crusade, I think it's got so many elements that really bring it up. And probably would have made my top 10 of the year that year if I mean, I don't think I was doing that. I was only, what, 18, 17, maybe, I don't know. But who knows?
Yeah, definitely. James, you didn't talk about Last Crusade yet.
Not yet.
Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I definitely like The Last Crusade a lot. I think a lot of folks have already touched upon the relationship with like Indiana Jones and his father. I mean, I love Sean Connery and pretty much everything, and this movie's definitely no exception. I think he's great in this movie. I love that angle on it. I like how it returns more to the true like kind of sense of adventure you get like from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not that it wasn't there in Temple of Doom, but I definitely like the feel of this movie. Kind of pretty much everything played out. Might have to check the history facts a little bit there because I forget when this movie was set, but I assume it took place before the Hindenburg exploded because that kind of stopped all Zeppelin travel pretty much worldwide after it blew up like that. So we have to check what year
Well,
this
we got
took
the
place
history
in
buff over here. He knows his
versus when the Hindenburg blew up.
That reminds me of the line, "No ticket."
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, but other than that, like I think one kind of like cool part about this, which took place with like the fight, like on top of those tanks, it's almost kind of funny because when they're on the tank and he's like hanging off the gun, on the side of it, like things like kind of look like they're moving pretty fast, but I want to almost go back and like watch that scene again because when you get like the kind of like the overhead like landscape shot, like you can actually see the tank going pretty slow, and those World War I era tanks like topped off like 4 miles an hour. So it's kind of funny that like the actual like action scene like not actually be that serious because the thing is chugging along the ground kind of. It's not moving fast at all, but like you're gonna see it in the scenes. So I might go back and check on that because I kind of like that aspect of it too. Like the tanks were just not fast at all. But I liked a lot of this movie, and it's a great film. I love it.
Hell yeah!
All the time, James. Are you like the guy that nitpicks every little thing? Oh, that's not right. That's not factual.
Especially with guns. And
I'll find a thing here or there. It depends, though. It depends on how blaring of a thing it is. I like to find a thing here or there. It won't like affect what I think of the movie necessarily because I can't let one little inaccuracy of freaking Hollywood film will ruin the whole thing. But it's just funny to see that kind of like do research type deal, like how that kind of slips through the cracks. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, you see that in one of these rankings. Yeah.
I will tell you this though, not to get off base here. I talk to military people, right, or firefighters or police people when it comes to police movies, firefighter movies, or military movies.
Sure. Yeah.
I ask them their opinions on what movies are the most realistic as far as their particular profession. And I get some interesting answers from military, police, and firefighters.
Yeah.
I'll do it like not on shows like this, but like in real life, I'll ask questions of people.
Yeah. When we were talking Ant-Man, James had like visual aids and was like, "Look at how this gun is used."
Oh yeah.
That was the one where wasn't it the gun? They literally like changed the gun. Like
something like that.
Yeah. Swap the model of the handgun that
only James would notice that.
That's great.
So yeah, cool. We are going on to talk about the last film.
Yeah.
That was actually nominated for Best Picture, and Dylan and I both said on our episode that it should have won Best Picture in our Picture This episode. And I will go ahead and start real quick with Raiders of the Lost Ark. This one's a classic. Everyone who ranks it number one, it makes perfect sense. It was nominated for Best Picture. It was kind of like the standard of like that kind of film. A lot of the action is directed like perfectly. Like him moving across the like under the car, and so like how he directed all that. Who the hell knows? It's just like masterful directing. It's some of what made Spielberg like the man he is today. The classic, some would say best director of all time kind of guy. Harrison Ford, classic in this role. It's what set that tone for the rest. It's what a lot of people who say, Crystal Skull is bad, will go back and they'll say, well, this is my Indiana Jones right here. And it's like from this movie, the classic one with the classic John Williams theme. You have Marion in this, and she's really great. She's, not just a damsel in distress. She's sitting there planning. She can drink any man under the table. She's kind of held hostage, kind of like Leia and Star and Empire, or is it Return of the Jedi? Sorry, I get all this confused. But like Leia, she will also go and not and choke out a bitch if you have to, kind of a deal. But yeah, it's classic stuff. I love just like in Last Crusade, I love the religious kind of stuff. Like he's chasing down the lost ark, or he's chasing down the Holy Grail. It's great. Yeah. So it's just like a really fun, just action adventure movie that doesn't really try to be much else, and I don't know. It's just one of the most fun movies you can watch, and yeah, I just also love the dynamic between Indy as a teacher that all the girls love and stuff, and pine over. He's really smart, and then then he'll go out and just adventure and archaeology and all this stuff. It's just a really, really fun, cool character. And I want to see more of the character at the end of the day, but also if they leave it kind of where we have it with these 5 movies, I think it's a pretty good franchise overall, personally. So yeah, I really dig this one. Kerri, what do you think of Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah, this movie is amazing. I could see this and Crusade just like swapping places in my ranking over time, and they have in fact swapped places over time. It's just the original it's so amazing. Like the character of Marion by Karen Allen is fantastic. I think she is like the best, maybe I think the best companion to Indiana Jones. The action is pretty nonstop in this movie, and just I think a lot of times when I think about the Indiana Jones franchise, I think of a lot of the action scenes in this movie. Like I think of that airplane scene in particular. It's just really well done. I love the introduction to Indiana Jones as a character that we get in this movie. And yeah, obviously it was an incredible success because they made the 4 other ones. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely. Dan, Raiders of the Ark. You like this?
We're going to go on a little bit of a picture this kind of thing here. So we got these 2 guys here who are on a show called Picture This. And they did the 1981 Oscars.
Very recently.
These guys are going to be on episode 4 of a series, a special series that I'm doing, celebrating my entire life. And in 1981, my movie of the year was Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you haven't watched that episode of My Life, My Love, 50 Years in Film, go back and watch it. I believe it's Sandy Robinson and I are talking about that one. I think we missed Jeremy was like a year or 2 later. But these guys are going to be on in episode 4. One of these days, I'm going to lock these 2 guys down. We're going to get talking not about Indiana Jones, but I freaking love this movie. That score, the Bolger chase, this. How about Doc Ock? Did anybody remember Doc Ock being in this?
That one.
he was always a backstabber. There's always somebody stabbing somebody in the back. This time it was Alfred Molina stabbing him in the back. Here, give me the whip and I'll give you the thing. Oh, damn it. The villains. The villains are the best in the franchise in this one. That guy, he grabs the thing out of the coal, stamps it right into his hand, burns his hand with that medallion right into his. That guy is a nasty character. The French guy. Oh God, I hate that French guy. I cannot stand that French guy. I'm not saying this about French people. I just hated that particular French guy. You know, that's part of the reason why French people get a bad rap. Guys like that. But what's his name again? Morlock or Ma? I can't.
Bullock?
Balak.
Yeah,
God, I
that's
hated that guy.
Yeah.
And then the visual effects. This is a 42-year-old movie. Am I doing my math there? I mean, when the freaking spirits come out and the guys melt away, what freaking amazing visual effects that is. That is some of the, for back then. Why do you think these guys talked about it? Why do you think we got visual effects Oscars now? It was because of the Elephant Man. But I believe what ended up winning was Werewolf in London, American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
But that was some freaking amazing makeup and whatever.
Wasn't even nominated though, right, Dylan?
Nope.
Yep.
Stupid.
Yep.
Well, there was only 2, right? Am I correct? There was only 2. Should have been. Why did they do this one? That should have been part of the nominees. That was incredible. That stop motion animation of how those guys just melt away at the end of the movie. I mean, the plane sequence where he's fighting that guy and he gets caught up in a. I mean, that going back and that truck sequence. That's going back to the old West, guys. Go look at some old West movies where they're horse and carriage and crap. They stole that right out of that. That is one of the greatest scenes in movie history. That whole getting stuck under the carriage. They did it with the truck and all that stuff. I mean, this movie is so good. I could be here for hours talking about it. We don't have hours. I love this movie. That's it.
Yeah, it's kind of perfect, isn't it? James, what do you think about Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah, it's one on my list. It is an overall fantastic movie all around. It's like the epitome of what like an adventure movie should be for all the reasons that even Dan's mentioned above. Like it's the reasons why I love it too. Like you get that whole sense of feeling like he's not always like ahead of the game. He's always like a few steps even behind like some of the other like the villains in this one. So there's always that sense of like there's that kind of tension just kind of builds in some of these scenes. It's just done so well. Character driven really well. I do love the end too. I think the visuals are great in this one. I love so much about this movie. I'll do what I did for Last Crusade though. One little bit here, that shoulder mounted rocket launcher that he threatened them with in the end of it. This movie took place mid-30s. That was not invented till the mid-ish to late 40s. Those RPG launchers that would have been a thing at the mid-30s when I'm pretty sure the movie took place. I'm pretty sure that's when it did. But that's the one little tidbit that kind of stuck out to me. I was like, shouldn't have had that. But other than that, fantastic movie. I love it. It's one I always talk about like rewatchable movies in these rankings, and it's absolutely Raiders. And I would even give it a Crystal Skull just on how kind of mindless and entertaining it can be. But I watching Raiders of the Lost. It's a fantastic movie.
Hell yeah. All right, let's end on the Dale of Destiny.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Archimedes went back in time and fucked around with the dates that they gave out the different weapons to make it fit within the historical accuracy. No, but it's a great movie. I mean, we covered it on Picture This, so there's not a ton more to add that I haven't added there. One thing we didn't bring up on Picture This, and this is, I think, a big thing to note, is also George Lucas's impact on the movie, because while he's not the director, I mean, Spielberg has such a great like classic formalism to his direction, but he hadn't, if he hadn't had George Lucas as a partner, chances are we probably wouldn't have seen the Nazis' faces melting off at the end. I think a lot of the pulpiness has to do with the Lucas marriage between Spielberg and Lucas, which I think is worth noting. But yeah, I read a review of one of my friends who said it's like the most romantic studio tentpole that isn't a romance. And I agree. I think the romance in this is so good. But not just the romance for the relationship at its core, but just the romance for the time period and the romance for the genre between Spielberg and the filmmaking. It's just such a romantic film in that sense. And I just think it's so well constructed. It's kind of amazing that the first 15 minutes has so much iconography in it that like when you think back on it, you're like, oh yeah, the big boulder. Can't wait to get to that big climax. And it's like, wait, no, it's 3 minutes in, which is amazing because that's like the image of the movie. So I just think it's really amazing that in just 15 minutes, he was able to be like, this is a classic, but then kept it going for the next 2 hours. So that's amazing. And John Williams, amazing. All these films he scored, and he's actually the only person next to Harrison Ford who's been involved in every single one of these. So and I guess Lucasfilm, even though George Lucas isn't directly tied to this one. But yeah, so pretty amazing. And Spielberg's an executive producer on the last one, but like John Williams has had his hand in every single one of these in a very strong manner. So just incredible score. Should have won Best Picture, and not even close, honestly. But yeah.
I got one more thing to say. I forgot to say this. In an ad lib, you guys. I don't remember if you guys did 69 or not, but
Not yet.
one of the greatest ad libs of all time in 69 in Midnight Cowboy. But this is one of the greatest ad libs of all time because Indy is sick. I mean, Harrison Ford is literally sick. He's got what they say he had and he was really sick. So it was supposed to be this sword fight with this big guy. And they clear the way, the parting of the scene, and then the guy's like, yeah, and he's like, shoots the guy. Completely ad lib, wasn't in the script, wasn't even supposed to happen. So in one of the most famous scenes in movie history, and so that's sometimes how Hollywood and movies work. You get these moments where you're like, and then great, it's just great. You know what I mean? And these guys will get to 1969. Eventually, so if they haven't already did it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's almost like some movies are made great the way they are by accident, and I feel like that's kind of like how Indy is as a character too, where he's like a lot of things happen by accident.
Jaws was the same way. Jaws was a lot of what happened in Jaws was by accident. It turned out to be one of the greatest films of all time.
They're actually this is a good plug. They're making a play about it on Broadway called The Shark is Broken, and it's like kind of a parody a little bit, but it's about the creation of Jaws and how like the shark didn't work, and that's why they had to make it the way they did. And in Alex Brightman, who played Dewey in School of Rock and Beetlejuice in Beetlejuice on Broadway, is playing Richard Dreyfuss. And there's a TikTok where he does this whole makeup transformation. He looks just like him. It's awesome. So The Shark is Broken. If anyone's in the New York area, check that out because it looks good. I'm gonna go check that out.
Maybe if it gets off Broadway, it goes
or if they film it or anything, I'll try to get it.
But Bruce the Shark. How about Bruce?
Yeah.
So we ranked Indiana Jones. It's a lot of people's favorite franchise. I think it's fantastic. There's a lot of people who hate certain movies in this franchise, and we didn't actually go hard. A lot of us kind of like most of these, and we had two of them at the top two, and we will get onto that overall ranking now. Kerri, okay. what is our overall final ranking for you ranking with me at Indiana Jones?
So at number 5 we have Temple of Doom. At number 4, Dial of Destiny. At number 3, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. At number 2, The Last Crusade. And at number 1, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's a fantastic ranking, and it actually that's my exact ranking.
Yeah.
No, except for Raiders and Lost Crusade, I got swept.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of sometimes we have a lot of variation with this one. It was pretty clear, like our bottom 3 were all very close together, like score wise. And then our top 2 were very close score.
Yeah, because like some people have Temple of Doom actually as like their number 1. That's my favorite. Huh. We didn't have one of those people on here, so.
But if they did, I mean, it's warranted. I think all of these movies are great. It would have been
It would have definitely been there would have been merit to that. It's a very fun movie, but I'm just saying, like on another day, maybe would have had a Temple of Doom stand here. But yeah, it's great. And so we did it. I did want to kind of transition a second and say a little bit of a segue to say that because Indy is a little bit of kind of a bumbling where things happen by accident a lot of the times, but he rolls with the punches and he ends up succeeding in the end because of it. There's another character that kind of does that. Ethan Hunt from Mission Impossible. And he kind of takes on that role a little bit these days that Indiana Jones took so long ago, 40 years ago. We're going to do Mission Impossible soon. We're going to do Adam Sandler is one that we've been in the works on so far. I believe it's just me, James, and my buddy Jordan. You've seen before on like the Halloween ranking. We're still talking M. Night Shyamalan, Wes Anderson coming up. things like that. And Dylan and I are working on a Steven Spielberg one. That's going to take a while. I got to watch his whole filmography. Sure, Dan. Yeah, we'll talk to you about it. But yeah, you know, so we're working on a lot. There's so many. I just thought that would be a good ranking. That would be a good ranking. But, you know, we're watching all these movies. We're having a great time doing it. And I'm glad that we could get this indie one in the bag because it's such a fun franchise. I had such a blast rewatching all of these. And yeah, I love it. And thank you guys so much for being here. We can go around real quick and get any plugs that anybody wants to do. Kerri, do you have any plugs? She never does. Dan, do you have any plugs?
Yeah, well, I'm a film critic in Orlando, Florida. I write for 2 websites, FromTheFourthRow.com and DisappointmentMedia.com. Also, I am a awards pundit on Gone with the Wind with Malcolm Lay. Right now, we're in the throes of Emmy coverage, and in a couple months, we're going to get back into the thick of things. And well, we might be doing Emmy coverage for a while. Oscar coverage, we'll probably be doing both at the same time, I guess, because of what's going on in Hollywood right now.
Oscars might be in 2025 at this point.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. So Gone with the Wind. Also, like I said, I've been on with these guys. Picture this: if you want to see my pretty face in this beautiful Boston Red Sox hat or a Celtics hat picture this a few times. We did the Godfather trilogy. We did 1980. Go back and look for those episodes. Those are great episodes. I had a blast with these guys. I want to be on way much more. No, that doesn't make any sense. Much more, because I love that show so much. I'm begging these guys to be on all the time. Also, as mentioned earlier, I am in the middle of a special 5-part series called My Life, My Love, 50 Years in Film, celebrating my entire existence with a bunch of my friends, going 10 years at a time. And hopefully we get these guys to do a 10-year span with me, and we'll have a blast talking about that decade of films that we're going to talk about, which I'm not going to say right now because I don't want to spoil it for later, what these guys end up talking with me eventually. But that's pretty much everything I'm doing.
Hell yeah. James, you got anything?
You can find me here.
Great. Dill.
Yeah, you can find me at Dill Pickle Movie Network on YouTube, Dill Pickle Podcast on podcast platforms, and the Dill Pickle Movie Network TikTok, which just launched, which is a lot of fun. So, yeah, I'm on all 3 of those platforms, and then my socials you'll find from there. Go on your own little Indiana Jones scavenger hunt. You can find me places.
And that's what I mean. That's my name, Dan Scapal, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But not Twitter. Forget about Twitter.
Threads.
Yeah, I don't even have Threads yet. On my phone's messed up. I haven't got Threads yet. But
yeah, and just to keep it brief, because I'm on everything, every one of these. Yeah, picture this, Dill Pickle Movie Network. Also check out Nerd Entertainment Network, where we do Welcome to Primetime, me and Kerri, and we talk horror and stuff like that. That's all I'll plug because I'm on every one of these. So, but yeah, check out all of our other videos. We've done a lot of great ones. I think this might be our 18th video. So
you're legal.
Having
well, not legal yet. You're an adult.
Overseas, you're legal. You're overseas, you're legal to drink.
Yeah, right. So have fun with all those other videos. Look forward to a lot of the ones that we have coming up, and make sure you like and subscribe. Tell your friends about it, and thank you for watching. And God damn it, are you ranking with me?
Yeah, man.
Cool.
I guess just I am.
I thought you actually forgot something. You were like, oh, God damn it. I was like, oh no, what happened?